All right, Bava Batra Tezayin Amud Bet. Okay, so I hope everyone had a nice Chanukah.
No, Bava Batra Amud Tezayin. Wait, yeah.
Daf Tezayin Amud Bet.
Oh.
So the truth is, this is kind of the continuation of a shiur that we did last year that after the shiur ended, developed more fully in my head that was connected to a sugya Bava Batra. I think so. But we didn't develop it fully, so I want now, after having spent some time last year kind of fleshing it out more, but not having talked about it in the shiur, to kind of use the springboard of the sugya in Bava Batra to develop it. The truth is, this is a famous midrash, and the Mefarshim go on and on about it. So if it weren't for this idea I want to develop, we could spend all shiur just talking about what the different Mefarshim say about this particular idea. But instead of that, I want to kind of develop a certain malach and see if anyone has anything interesting to add to it or to say about it, because I'm open to thoughts as well. The context, we finished the sugyot about Iyov. We've been dealing with Iyov for the last few weeks. And as the first parak of Bava Batra comes to a close, I think we have maybe 1 or 2 more weeks before moving on to later pakim. So it transitions to a couple of other agadot about Avraham. And in particular, the Gemara asks when Avraham, after Akedat Yitzchak, towards the end of his life, it says, Avraham zaken ba bayamim, v'Hashem barach et Avraham Bakol. Right? And everybody, the Gemara is bothered by what is Bakol, because Avraham has been blessed many times throughout his life, right? From the very beginning, right? To Brit Ben Betarim, where he's promised, Sanai Necho Bechol Sfat Hayam, and Eretz Kenai. He's promised many things throughout the course of his life. So what is this Bakol? So we'll see here that there's a bunch of different opinions in the Gemara. And then, like I said, I'm going to develop a mahalach that at the surface it won't necessarily connect, but hopefully at the end we'll see how the chidush ties back to the Gemara. Okay, so the Gemara says, V'Hashem berach et Avraham Bakol. My Bakol. So what does it mean? Avraham was blessed with everything. And he already received all these brachot of Eretz Yisrael and children.
Means everything?
Bakol. Okay. Behakol. Im kaf.
בכל זה גימטריה 52, כן.
Opa, יפה. Rabbi Meir אומר שלא הייתה לו בת. So Rabbi Meir says that he didn't have a ben. Rabbi Yehuda אומר שהייתה לו בת. So it's a machlokes Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda is being blessed with everything mean that you do or do not have a daughter. Right? One says it means you have a girl, one says it means you don't have a girl. So that's the machlokes there. אחרים אומרים,
Why does it matter if you have a goal or don't have a goal for this situation?
So the question is, what does it mean to be blessed with everything? Right? We've learned We've learned in Masechet Nida, there are Gemaras that say whoever has a zachar is a sameach, whoever has a nekeva is a tzuv. We've learned things like that. But we'll see. I want to really tie back to this idea, particularly at the end. But Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda disagree about what it means. Or we know also Avraham had children at the end of his life. Right, because he marries Keturah and he has, 6? He has several children through Keturah. So when he's old, Avraham, when he's old, he has several more children at the end of his life. But here, Rabbi Meir,
1,000?
No, but here Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, shalom, they say, right. So Meir says he didn't have a daughter. Rabbi Yehuda says he did have a daughter. Acherim omrim bat hayta lo Avraham ובכל shema. So the Acherim agree with Rabbi Yehuda, but they say her name was Bakol. Right? Some other opinions. What does Bakol mean? Rabbi Elazar Mudai Omer, Itztagninut hayta belibo shel Avraham Avinu, shekol malchei mizrach u'ma'arav mashkimim nefetcho. That he was an astrologer. He knew how to read the stars, the constellations. So Avraham. So when all the kings from around the ancient Near East, they used to come to consult with him. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer, Even tova hayta tluya betzavaro shel Avraham Avinu, shekol chole haroeh oto miyad mitrapeh. What does it mean he was blessed Bakol? He had a magical amulet, a stone that hung around his neck. Whoever was sick and looked at it became healthy. And then when Avraham died, it was hung in the sun. And Abaye says, that as the day progresses, if you're sick, you get better. Sometimes we wake up with a cold or we're kind of under the weather, we just improve as the day goes on. The sunlight is healthy for us, so that is the reminiscent of this stone that used to hang around Avram's neck that's hung in the sun.
When there's less sunlight, you get more sick.
Right.
In winter.
Exactly. So we're not going to deal with this particular interpretation right now, but this is what Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai says.
But our neck isn't as big as the sun.
Nachon. Yeah, there's a lot to discuss about that. It's a good question. Not for right now. We've learned, I think, in the past also, Gemara, I don't remember when, in what context, but like Choli didn't enter the world until Yaakov Avinu asked for it, and then Choli that you can recover from didn't enter the world until Elisha, came into the world. So the Mefarshim on this say, but here you're talking about people who looked at Avraham's amulet, they were healed from illness. How does that make sense? Okay. Davar acher, another opinion, Shelo marad Esav b'yamav, right? There's a famous idea. What does it mean he was blessed Bakol? It means that he died at 175 when, if you calculate the years, Esav and Yaakov were 15. That was right before Esav really went out to be the Tarbut Ra'ah. So Bakol actually means his life was shortened before he saw his grandchild go off the path. Davar acher she'asa Yishmael tshuva b'yamav, or that he lived long enough to see his son Yishmael actually be chozer b'tshuva. And then just to end off, there are three people where Hashem kind of hid or buried in this world for them, a taste of Olam Haba. Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. It's the Avot. How do we know? Avraham dichtiv beBakol, Yitzchak dichtiv beMikol, Yaakov dichtiv beKol. Where do we reference this?
Bakol mikol kol.
Bakol mikol kol. So when we say Bakol mikol kol, it's actually by Avraham. It says Hashem berachad Avraham Bakol. By Yitzchak it says Mikol, and by Yaakov it says Kol. So that's the Bakol mikol kol, which you get the brachot of the Avot. Okay.
What time did Esav die at?
How old was Esav when he died?
Does
Does anyone know? Does it say?
Wasn't he killed when Yaakov was coming to
Okay, good. So according to the Midrash, right, Nachon, he was killed when Yaakov was being buried. So
a
80.
couple months afterwards.
And he was 8. Right. Yaakov was... So Yaakov died at 147. So if they were twins, 147. Right? Okay. Good question.
Oh.
All right. So the malach I want to develop is the following. Okay, so we see here that Vashem berachad Avraham Bakol. Avraham was blessed Bakol. And the truth is, the Gemara here doesn't make reference to the fact that this is not the first appearance in Avraham's life of the concept of kol. And at the end, it says, Bakol mikol kol. So the truth is, I'll kind of already say a bit of the spoiler in the beginning, which is after the war with the kings, so Avraham, he wins the battle, and then someone approaches him, right? His name is Melchizedek. Melech Shalem, and Melchizedek comes with lechem v'yayin, right? And then he gives him a bracha. And what does Avraham do for Melchizedek? Right. So it says v'yitein lo maaser mikol. Okay. So Avraham gives Melchizedek maaser mikol. Now, what is the mikol in the reference there? So Pshat and the Mefarshim say this is he just won a battle.
Gives him
right? So he gives him maaser from the spoils of the milchama. Okay. But let's see what the Tanchuma Yilamdenu says. Amar Rav Huna, Avot harishonim ifrishu trumot u'maaserot. Okay, so Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they separated Truma and Maaser. Avraham ifrish Truma Gdola. And they, not only that, but they each separated a different type of Truma. Okay, so Avraham did Truma Gdola, right? Shneimar, imot yad el Hashem v'gomer. So why is Avraham Truma Gdola? Because who did he give his Maaser to?
Kohen.
Melchizedek, who Kohen le'elyon. So he gave it to a Kohen, therefore it was Truma Gdola, because that goes to the Kohen. Okay, ben aromah truma, k'mad atamar, remotem min trumat Hashem. Yitzchak ifrish maaser sheni. Okay, Yitzchak gave maaser sheni. Shneimar, vayizra Yitzchak ba'aretz ahi, v'nimtza v'shanim v'anashim v'yivacheu Hashem. Okay, and the limud there is that that's a reference to maaser sheni. Amar Rabbi Eva bar Kahana, v'lo en bracha mitzvah lo madud v'lo shakur v'lo manui. Okay, this is actually how this came up last year. We learned this in Bava Batra. This idea the bracha is only from that was samui min ayin, right? So, how could Yitzchak, who was going out and looking at this produce, how could it have been blessed? Mea she'arim, v'lama modedin b'shvil le'asro. And then we say, no, if you go out to measure it in order to give maaser, so then you, of course, get a bracha. You're not allowed to measure it otherwise. Adu dichtiv v'yivacheu Hashem. And Yaakov ifrish maaser rishon. How do we know Yaakov was ifrish maaser rishon? Pshat. Shneimar, right? What does he say after his Vaydar Yaakov neder lemor, after his chalom? Shavti v'shalom b'veit avi v'yashem li l'elokim kol asher titen li aser asrenu lach. What's the problem with this last piece, saying that Yaakov was mafrish maaser rishon?
Maaser Rishon goes to
Okay, maaser rishon goes to a Levi. We'll actually get to that.
No, it was a lady.
There was no Levi, right?
Son.
His son was Levi. So good. We're about to get to that. No, you're laughing, but you'll see. You'll see. But he says in his neder, if you bring me back home in peace, all right, I will give maaser. But when does he actually do it? In other words, he says he'll do it. By Avraham, we see he gave it to Melchizedek. By Yitzchak, he gave it at Maya Shearim, he gave Vayivach Hashem. But we never see Yaakov actually give it. So look at the next part of the Midrash. Kuti echad ba v'shalat Rabbi Meir. So a Kuti came and asked Rabbi Meir the following question. Amar le, le'tatun amrin da'aden Yaakov avuchon kshotu. Don't you say that Yaakov Avinu is emes, right? You say, Abraham Avinu is the sphere of, Chesed, and Yitzchak is Gevura, and Yaakov is Tiferet, he's in the middle.
I
What?
remember we did this year.
Yeah. So this is the beginning of it, right? So Amar lo in. So he said, yes. Dichtiv, titen emet leYaakov, chesed leAvraham. So the Kuti said to him, Ifrish shifto shel Levi achad me'asara shvatim. Lo haya lafrish lo od shnayim. So he says, well, Yaakov, when he gave Maaser in an improper way. Mm-hmm. Why? Because he gave Levi as Maaser, but that's only 1 out of 12. He had 12 sons, and you're supposed to give Maaser 1 out of 10. So he gave Levi as Maaser, but it wasn't enough. 1/12 is less than a tenth. That's the Kuti's question. Okay. First of all, we see here the Kuti is assuming that Levi himself was the Maaser. Okay. And like whoever heard of people being brought as Maaser, and that's what we'll develop.
Meaning he was like his son to be the lady, therefore he was giving Maaser.
Right. Levi was his Maaser to Hashem. But where does that idea even come from? That's what we'll get
That's
to.
the 1/12 if you count Yosef as 2.
If you count 12, yeah.
Okay, so Rabbi Meir is about to correct the math.
Oh, he
Okay,
did
good.
say
So Rabbi
that.
Meir, Amar lo Rabbi Meir, Atamar dinun 13, v'ana amrin dinun 14. Dichtiv, Ephraim u'Menashe, Reuven v'Shimon Yehuli. He says, I'll say one better than you, Kuti, right? It's really, you also have Ephraim and Menashe, which are on the same level.
You don't want 13, like you can't Yosef and Menashe?
Right. Yeah. He says 1 out of 14, but you're right. So then he says, Amar lo, v'hat Messiah li osafta kemach osef mayim. So the Kuti says, you're just supporting my argument. You're like making the case even stronger, because 1/14 is even less than 1/12. Right? You've added flour, add water, which I guess is some phrase to mean, give an answer. Don't just make it worse.
You might need to put out a fire.
I guess. Yeah, you're adding fuel instead of putting it out, right? So Amar lo, ein at model yidinun 4 imahot sheyu lehem 4 bechorot, ve'en ha-bechor mitasher. So Rabbi Meir says you don't take master from a bechor. Why not? Lama shu kodesh ve'en kodesh motzi kodesh. This principle in Hilchot Maser, and then the bechor is exempt from the bringing. So there were 4 imahot, so the 4 of each one, and therefore Ruvain, Yosef, and Dan, Gad and Dan are exempt.
This is the first child of each. If you have multiple wives, each one is a Bechor.
Yeah.
You can do it in a bank for each of them.
Batarechem.
Betarachim, yeah. It's based on the man. So he says, so there's 12, or there's 14, excuse me, and I take away 4. That leaves me with 10. So 10 is, and Levi was 1 out of the 10.
13 because you wanted to do.
He wanted to get to the 10, right? So Amar le tuvi umatcha de'at begava. So then the Kuti says, blessed is the nation that you are a member of. I am modeh that this all makes perfect sense. Okay?
He's ignoring the fact that Ephraim's before.
This is
Oh no!
He's ignoring the fact
This is the problem.
that Ephraim is a Bechor.
Not if you say Ephraim and Menashe are like Reuven and Shimon. Meaning, once you add them into the original
Reuven.
count, then he's not.
Because from the Ima, no, because they're like from that Ima, right? Yosef is exempt already, so his kids.
Yeah, but they're not Yaakov's book.
Pirkei D'Rebbe is going to give a bit more satisfying chishuv than this one. Okay, wait, we'll get to it. Okay, if you look at Pirkei D'Rebbe gives one that's a bit better. Okay, so Targum Yonatan says the following. Even Targum Yonatan actually says a bit better, I think, if I remember correctly. Minisha Yaakov levado me'ever le'abok. Okay, so it's Targum Yonatan is the Perusha in Aramaic on so it's talking about the struggle between Yaakov and the angel. Okay, so Yaakov was left alone. This is the English translation of the Aramaic. Okay, v'nevak malach imo kidmut ish, and the angel who looked like a man argued with him. Or wrestled with him. Ve'amar, what did the angel say? Halo amart le'aser et kol asher lach. You told me v'chol asher titen le'aser asrenu lach. והנה יש לה 12 בנים ובת אחת, right, דינה, Velo isartem, but you didn't bring maser. Okay, so what is this adding now? It's not just Stam Kuti coming and asking Rabbi Meir, where's your, why didn't Yaakov? It's that the angel is demanding from Yaakov the maser. Now, why is the angel demanding the maser from Yaakov? I was like, what?
What prompted?
Yeah.
So they brought him back to his land.
Exactly.
So it's
Right?
from the
When did he make the neder? When he was about to leave Eretz Yisrael. V'shavti b'shalom al beit avi, v'chol asher titeni aser sanulach. So now he's on the border back to Eretz Yisrael. What? Right. He's like, no. I brought you back b'shalom. I gave you I fulfilled my side of the neder. You're coming back to Eretz Yisrael. You could also even say Truman Master is only chal in Eretz Yisrael. If you want to add another layer.
Oh.
But it's that the angel comes and says, no, fulfill your side of the neder. Well,
He's barely home safe. He's still on the way, and
he's about to cross the border. Yeah. So what does Yaakov do? Miyad ifrish arba'a bechorim l'arba'a imahot. Okay, so he takes away the 4 firstborns. V'nisharu shmona, and there's out of the 12 kids, there's 8 left. And look what he says here. He doesn't do the Ephraim Menashe trick, which was bothering Yonah before. He says the following: V'shina v'chazar lemanot mishimon ve'ala levi b'maser. So he puts them in order, and he starts counting in order. So he skips Reuven, because Reuven's a Bechor. So he goes Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Dan, Naphtali. He skips the Bechor. So he gets through all 8. And then number 9, he starts in the beginning again. Shimon, Levi. So Levi is number 10. So that's why Levi is chosen to be the master. Because Rabbi Meir doesn't address why Levi specifically was taken. So this is his kind of way of explaining why it was Levi in particular. Okay, Ana Michael ve'amar Ribbono shel olam, zeu goralecha v'adol dvim eile yishtaam mehala lenachel alalot amod shachar.
I think it's reflected in the way that you would do meiser for behemoths. No,
I think that's the shita.
Meiser Behema, if there's less than 10 year patur, I think.
Okay, we'll get to that as well.
I don't think you have to do if you
even
have
if you
less than
promise.
10.
No.
It's not a promise, it's a chiyuv to do Meiser Behema.
Yeah,
Probably
and
him.
here it's a self-imposed. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Torah, man.
So self-imposed. So good. So let me get through Pikad over there, and then actually, let me even raise the question now. Where's this idea that you have to give meiser for your children coming from? Did the angels? No, it's Yaakov said, "V'chol shetit in liaser sanulach." So I would assume, okay, great. You whatever. You go make produce. You have animals. You have money. So that's what he said. He had to give meiser from. Why are you assuming he has to give from his kids? Whoever heard of such an idea? Right. The firstborn is exempt.
Is the mice of your kids? Meaning
No, it's that's the Bakol is just exempt from meiser. That's the and kodesh motzi
No, but I'm
kodesh.
saying the concept of giving a portion of your kids
Yeah.
to hektish or whatever it is a bechor, no?
But not because of
Yeah,
Maser,
yeah.
because of like Bechor.
Because of
It's
Bechor,
different,
yeah.
But yeah, it's giving over for kodesh.
No, I'm just you're asking since when do we have a concept of mastering from your kids? I'm saying that is a little bit.
Okay, I understand your
You have
question.
a concept of
You're right. There is this
portion of the kids.
That's correct. You're right. There is this concept of Bechor. You are right. But we've never seen a concept of maser by children. But you're right. There is a concept of giving your children over.
I mean,
Absolutely.
in the beginning, I thought the Maasel part was that, like, his Yerusha is going a tenth to Levi. Levi's a Levi, and not his kid.
Which is how you would think it should be, right?
Yeah.
That's why which is why this whole thing is quite interesting. Yeah.
So it connects back to the kol. The kol is children.
Okay. Yeah.
And he said, "V'kol asher titen li aser sanulach."
Good. Okay. So that's where we're going. Okay. That's where we're going.
I'm not sure.
Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer says the following. Okay, רצה לעבור יעקב את מעבר יבוק ולהתעכב שם. אמר לו המלאך, לא כך אמרת לי וכל שתיתן לי, חצר רצנו לך. מה עשה יעקב? Now he adds something, Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. What does he add? לקחת מקנה קניינו שהביא מפדן ארם. So remember, Yaakov is wealthy, right? He got a lot of stuff when he was with Lavan, the whole game he played with the flocks and the sheep and all that. He has a lot of actual produce as well. So he takes all of that. Michamisha alafim v'chameshmot. He had 5,500 animals. Okay? Now, why 5,500 animals? Because if you go and look, right after the battle, the next morning, he sends a mincha, he sends a gift to Esav, right? To appease Esav. If you count, it's like, whatever, it's chelim nesrim, gmalim shloshim, it's 550 animals. From all the different...
It has to be divided by 10 plus...
So this is his mice he's giving to Esav?
Right.
That's
So
what he's
the
left
Meiser,
with.
he gives to Esav. That's what this is saying, okay?
Esav's bechor? It's before. Controversial?
So, wait. Ve'odam was Esav a
That's what
Bechor?
I'm saying, it's controversial.
So we'll get to that as well. Esav wasn't a Bechor.
He wasn't, he bought it.
I think it came up once before that we learned about, like, in some aspects he was still the Bakol. But like he sold the Bakol, but like he was kind of still the Bakol for some things. Didn't we learn that here?
Yes, because you can't buy the Bechorah. Anyway, sorry.
At the end, we'll say why he wasn't the Bakol, perhaps. But I'm not sure, maybe. ועוד אמר המלאך ליעקב, יעקב, לא נתת מעשר מכל. You gave your animals to a tenth of your animals, but you didn't give mikol. Right? ולא יש לך בנים, ולא הסרת אותם לי. מה עשה יעקב? הפריש 4 בכורות ל4 אמהות. Okay? ונשתיירו 8 בנים. התחיל משמעון, וגמר בבנימין. Now look what he adds, שבמאי אמו. Because none of us asked, Binyamin wasn't born yet at this point, right? He was only born once Yaakov got into Eretz Yisrael. So you're giving me this whole chishuv about 12 kids, but it's not even true. He was in utero. He still counted for the chishuv, okay? ועוד התחיל משמעון, ועלה לוי מעשר קודש להשם, שנאמר עשי קודש להשם. And now,
it was a boy also.
What?
He knew it was a boy.
Yeah, of course, yeah. ולקח יעקב את כל מעשר קניינו, שהביא מפדן ארם, ושלח ביד עבדיו ונתן לעשיו. Okay, so Yaakov took all of his maaseh, all the things that he got in by Lavan's house, and he sent it to Esav. And this now, what bothered Shimon is the bothered the Midrash. Amar lehem imru lo kol ma'avdecha Yaakov. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yaakov asita hakodesh chol. Right? Why are you sending your maser to Esav? Right? What kind of recipient is that? So Amar lefanav, Ribon kol ha'olamim. Ani machnif larasha b'shvil shelo yargeni. I am bribing that wicked man so he shouldn't kill me.
It's not Meiser.
What? He's like, it's a dual function. In other words, he's doing it to give
How's
myself.
that it's supposed to appease? Hashem's like, why are you wasting it on him? It's like,
pay.
well, it's benefiting me.
I pay
Right.
myself
That's what I'm saying.
protection.
It's even like, Meiser is just like giving it
Goes
up.
back to
Right.
what we're learning about if you lose the money, right? Like if you have to give 10%,
What will
we
make you
learned at
lose
some
it?
point about whether it's about you not having it or about who gets it.
Right.
Right.
We did that in the beginning of Bava Batra, all the tzedakah stuff, right?
So it could be that like he's like, even though he's not the ideal recipient, like he's allowed. I don't have it. Like I'm
Okay. It's like a chakir. You're saying, is Meiser about giving the money away or giving, okay.
of it going to an ideal recipient.
Here.
But you're making a good point that he's getting benefit from it.
Right.
It's like I don't like whenever people do these like raffles or something that are kind of a sucker where they're like, you can use Meister money, you also might win a car. Like it's a bit schwach, right?
That's basically this.
It's a bit schwach. I mean, this is the proof that it's fine.
It's a proof for something else. Mikan amru machnifim et harashaim ba'olam hazeh mipnei darchei shalom. You're allowed to bribe governments or what have you in order to preserve your...
That came out as what we talked about last time. It was when they used they let someone out from prison or something.
Right. Yeah. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai bribes the warden
Right.
with the money that they didn't give to Meiser.
But the question is asked. I mean, he says Hashem asked him that it wasn't Meiser, so clearly that, like it's not so clear.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is a bit unclear here and a bit problematic. And we see Hashem kind of punishes him for it, right? Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lo dayecha she'asita atzmecha kodesh chol. It's bad enough that you took your master and you made it profane. Ela she'amarti v'rav yavot seir. I promised when you got the bracha from Yitzchak, I promised that Esav would, be inferior to you. He would work for you. Ve'ata amart avdecha Yaakov. But you're coming and you're saying, oh, you're servant Yaakov. You're be a proud yid. Stop being so right. Don't be a yid of galut. Be a yid of
have trust in me.
right.
I promise you something.
Right. Stand tall. So chayecha kidvarecha. Yeah, but since you said that, that's what's going to happen. Hu yimshel alecha b'olam hazeh v'tatei moshe b'olam haba. So that's why all the years of galut, Esav is in charge because Yaakov lowered himself. Okay. So okay, good. So that was kind of the introduction. Now I want to address what Jonas said earlier, which is. And really take a step back, like, where do we see this idea of kids being included in the Meister? So I want to argue that when we know there's this idea in the Gemara and Yuma that the Avot, they kept the mitzvah, right? Kol Torah Kula.
Avram was making
Right?
matzahs.
Right? Avraham was making matzahs. There's a lot of examples of the Avot keeping and then there's Machlokes. It didn't mean that it was a chiyuv for them or they did it on their own voluntary. Okay, fine. But this idea that the Avot kept the Torah. So, if so, when Yaakov says, "V'chol shatitani aser sonulach," but he has to give maser because he keeps the Torah, and you're not allowed to make a neder on a mitzvah, right? This is a classic idea in Ilchot Nedarim. Right? I can't say I'm going to make a neder to put on tefillin. It's a neder shel shav because you're mechuyav in it anyway. So if Yaakov is giving maser anyway, what does it mean? V'chol shatitani aser sonulach. So it has to be that what he's saying is I'm adding something that's not normally included in the boundary of what's normally considered maser, namely children. And I want to argue there's a hint to that actually in the halakha. Because Tosfot in Tani, that's the type of Tani, it says the following. Hitta b'sifrei, aser ta'aser kol tfuvat zarecha. So in the mitzvah of maser, the Torah says kol tfuvat zarecha, all of your produce. Hayotzei asereh shena shena. So the Midrash Halacha says, ein li el tfuvat zarecha shechayav b'maser. Ribit v'pragmatya v'chol shar revachim minayin. In other words, how do I know there's a chiyuv of maaser ksafim, right? Okay, the Torah just talks about I have to give from vegetables, the things that grow from the ground. But isn't there also this idea that, let's say I'm not a farmer, I'm not in agriculture, does that exempt me from maaser? Oh, there's still this idea that you have to give from your profits. So how do I know that? Talmud lomar et kol, right? The word kol in that pasuk of aser ta'aser, kol tfuvat zarecha, teaches me that I also have a chiyuv of maaser and things that are beyond the boundary of the pure produce that I would have to give. It should have said tfuvatcha. My kol, the rabot, ribut v'kmata v'chol davar Hashem arviach bo. The Torah Tmima, in his Perush on this pasuk, says the following: V'ayin b'asagot ha'rayvid l'Rambam, perek tet l'cha'alech, Mimlachim katav she'Avraham tiken mitzvat masrot. Okay, so the Rambam writes that the mitzvah of masrot was established by Avraham. This is a callback to our midrash from earlier. And v'chule v'nuchal lomar dedat ha'rayvid sham b'kavanat ha'katuv v'yiten lo maser mikol. Hainu mikol asher bebeito. So even the Ravid, he reads into v'yiten lo maser mikol by Avraham when he gave maser to Melchizedek. Again, I would argue using that idea that if Avraham established Maser and he had the chiyuv of the mitzvah of Maser, so then what is Vayiten lo Maser Mikol? He has to do it anyway. It means something beyond that. Okay, so here it says Dahainu Mikol Asher Bebeito. So the kind of the jump that Torah Tmima is making based on Tosfot is that would include his financial benefits. What I want to argue is it would go even further, and Mikol Hashem Beito would even include your children, and then that would explain B'chol Asher Titen Li Aser Sonulach is why Yaakov suddenly is mechuyav to give Maser from his kids, because he did something above and beyond outside the gather of Aser Taser at Kol Tvat Zorecha. Okay, so that's that. Now this is really the kind of the main point of the shiur. If that is the case, then when Avraham is Vaytinu Maser Mikol, just like when Yaakov said, B'chol asher titen li aser sunulach, we see the angel come and say, where is the Maser from your children? So then that should also be Chal on Avraham, because Avraham also gave Maser Mikol. And we know that Mikol is the context by Yaakov, it has to do with children. And Yaakov fulfills the neder because he gives Levi, as all these midrashim, through various kind of explanations, they explain. But where do we see Avraham giving Maser with children? So the truth is, he didn't have any children at the time when he was in the battle with Melchizedek. Right? The battle with Malachim was before he had any children. But that doesn't really answer the question, because Yaakov, when he said V'chol asher titen li aser sunulach, he also didn't have any children. Right? The idea of V'chol asher titen li, like when you have those children, then you should give Maser. So perhaps Avraham should have been mechuyav in Maser with his children when he had them. No, even if I'm giving Maser now, and I'm saying, okay, I'm giving to the Kohen Truma or Maser, so when I have children, then I have to give those as well. So what I want to argue is the following: that Avraham had two children, right? He had Ishmael and then he had Yitzchak. Now, when he has Ishmael, there's no chiyuv of Maser because Ishmael was a Bechor, and we saw in Kodesh Motzi Kodesh. So when does the chiyuv take effect? With Yitzchak. So when does Avraham give Yitzchak as Maser? To Hashem. Okay, that's Yitzchak. Right? Everyone has such a hard time understanding. And Avraham is silent, and nobody. What?
It's not really my say. It's 100%.
It's the additional one, the additional child. Yes.
No, I'm saying he was going to sacrifice it, which is not giving 10%.
It's giving to Hashem.
No, but if
it's giving to Hashem.
you can't do a tenth of a person, so it's like Levi, just one out of
It says, Kachnet bincha et yichidcha. This is the only one that you have, because Ishmael is patur from Maser, so you have to give the notar, the one that's extra, to me. To Hashem. Because because you have a chiyuv of giving Maser Mikol, and you haven't done it yet. Just like Yaakov had a chiyuv to give Maser Mikol by his children.
Except both of them are Pederechem.
What?
Except that both of them are Pederechem in the first place.
With Yitzchak?
You can't argue. You
Ah,
told me they're not
nachon. Oh, that's a good hole. Okay, that's a problem. All right, I was
I'm
gonna.
throwing on flour, not water.
Yeah, that's a good problem. I didn't think of that. Yeah, good.
You could say from Yaakov, from Avram's point of view, he was like the first kid he had and then the second. But
I'm sorry, he didn't have to give because they were both Bechol.
Right, but then that ruins the whole chiddush, right? What I was gonna say, if you look in this Mishnah in Masrot, so it says if you have a tree with like figs, for example, so when does the chiyuv of Maser take effect? So te'enash yomedet bechatzer, you have a fig tree in a courtyard. Ochel achat v'achat upatur. So if a person comes and plucks a fig, so he doesn't have to give Maser. It's like individual, one. You take one at a time, so then you don't have a chiyuv of Maser on that produce that you've taken off. V'im tzaref chayav, but if you take two, it's already a group. The second one, unlike what you said by Maser Behema, that when it comes to fruits here, once you take two, then the chiyuv of Maser takes effect. You take some portion of the second fig, right? But you have to take Maser on the second one. Rabbi Shimon omer, achat b'miro v'achat b'shmolo v'achat b'fiv. Rabbi Shimon disagrees. He just says, if I have one fig here, and then one in my mouth, so I still don't have to give Maser, but the halacha doesn't follow him. If you go up into the fig tree, you can eat as much as you want. This is only when you're on the ground, then you have to take Maser. Yeah, whatever, some nuances in the halachot of Maser, but the point I want to make is where it says, Vim tzeref, so Rabbi Martinor, he explains, Shtayim chayav, that the chiyuv of Maser takes effect when you have two or more. So therefore I want to say that Yitzchak is when the chiyuv takes effect. Avraham doesn't offer Yitzchak, so Hashem comes and says, give me my Maser.
Yeah, can I help answer my own question? You could take away the whole Betera and ignore the first point. Meaning, you could say he has two kids, so we take Maser from kids, he gave Akedes Yitzchak.
Right.
You can ignore the whole firstborn thing.
But then how do we but your question is a good question.
No, because you could just say he has two firstborns, so where do we see the concept that you give Maser from your kids as well? He has two kids, so you sacrifice one of them.
No, you can only exempt the firstborns if you have a lot more children.
Both of them are firstborn. I'm saying you could say he's still held in Maser of his kids. He had him as the father had two kids, and he would sacrifice one of them.
I want to answer that because I want this chiddush to work. But you raised a good question before, which is with Yaakov, Rabbi Meir went through this whole thing to say each of the imahot.
But they're both.
Then he would need to give two.
Why? No, 10%. He's giving 50. Wow, he was giving extra.
No, but then Yaakov would need to give two, because he is 14 or 12.
No,
because
50% is voluntary, not. Avraham Avinu had two firstborns.
Right.
So you're saying that
if you don't have a choice, you have to give one out of two because that's all you have. But once you have more than 10, you can give just that.
Right, but if they count towards the count, then
right. So I also wanted to say. I also wanted to say. What did I want to say? That Yitzchak and Yishmael. I wanted to say something else also. That Yishmael, there was no chiyuv because he was a firstborn, and the Bechor is pater, and you also don't have Maser with only one, as we saw in this Mishnah. But I want to say then why we don't ever see Yitzchak giving Maser, right?
Yaakov and Esau.
Right, but they were actually two Bechors because they were twins. Right. And you could say that, but they weren't both Bechor, right? One of them was Bechor. But Yaakov stole the Bechorah, so they were both Bechor. Esau was born a Bechor, and Yaakov stole the Bechor. But you could also say, first of all, that's really Peterechem Echad, because they're twins. In other words...
Peterechem is the first pregnancy, the first one that comes out. Like nowadays, you do Peter Ben if you have twins, the boy comes out first, you do Peter Ben or not?
You do it for the one that came out, no? First?
Is it? I'm not sure. Peterechem makes it, the name implies that it's the baby being created, not stammer.
I think it's the first one that comes out, yeah. But I want to argue actually even another... I didn't bring the source here, but this is really a stretch. That the idea of Hekdesh, like it could be Yitzchak didn't have to bring Maaser because he himself was Maaser. So he was Hekdesh. He was brought as Hekdesh. And in Hekdesh, Chal, like you don't have to bring... Like Hekdesh is Pater mi Maaser. Okay, let me just finish here with this last... How does this all tie to the Gemara in Bava Batra? You might be asking. I will explain how. The Gemara in the Tanchuma Yolandenu, it says the following. First of all, the reason I like this is like everyone's saying Akedat Yitzchak. It makes no sense. It's the ultimate question. Nobody understands it. All the Mefarshim, like, why did Avraham protest? How could Hashem command this sort of thing? This is like a completely different explanation. Like, no, the chiyuv meiser. What are you bothering me? You know, like, and Avram's like, okay, what am I supposed to do? I have a chiyuv meiser. You know, so it's like, it explains the. But in a more serious note, the last midrash here in Tanchumi Yom Dein says the following. You know, let me actually go to Vashem berach et Avraham bakol towards the end of the second line. Okay, Vashem berach et Avraham bakol. Why did Hashem bless Avraham bakol? Bischut ma? Bischut sheifrish maaser mikol. So the midrash makes the explicit connection that Hashem blessed Avraham bakol because he gave maaser mikol. In other words, what? What does it mean, Vashem berach et Avraham bakol? Like, what is the reward for someone who gives maaser willingly? What? Bacha. And in particular, what's the bacha? Aser b'shvil shetitasher. The more you give, the more you get, right? If I give 1/10 of my produce, I will be blessed with additional produce in a way that doesn't make sense, but that's the whole point, right? Aser b'shvil shetitasher. So if Avraham Avinu willingly gave Yitzchak as a korban to Hashem to fulfill his chiyuv as maaser, what bracha is he supposed to get?
More kids.
More kids. Vashem berachat Avraham bakol, because he gave mikol, because he gave his chiyuv, because he had a chiyuv to get, he gave his son Yitzchak to fulfill that additional layer of maaser, level of maaser. So he's blessed at the end of his life with more children. So what is my bakol? Hayta lo bat hayta lo Avraham ubakol shema. That he had another child because he gave his child. That is aser b'shvil shetitasher in practice, and that was the bacha of Avraham. We said b'tenu maaser mikol Hashem berachad Avraham bakol. So that is what I want to suggest. But that thing with Sarah, yeah, you messed it up. I got to think about that more deeply and figure out a way for it to still work. That was a big hole. But I want to suggest this theme of Bakol Mikol Kol and the Avot giving Maaser, and then tying it to the last thing also, by the way, when Yaakov says Kol, right? Bakol Mikol Kol. So when does Yaakov say Kol? When he confronts Esav. So him and Esav are talking, right? And he says, "Take it. No, it's fine." You know, so then Esav says at one point, Yeshli Rav. No, I have enough. You don't have to give me. And then Yaakov says, Yeshli Kol. Now, if we say Kol means like the Kol Asher Titeni Aser Sunulach, why is Yaakov saying Yeshli Kol? Because the previous night he had separated Levi as Truma, and he had separated all the animals and given them to Esav. So Yeshli Kol in the sense that I just now fulfilled the neder that I gave when I left Eretz Canaan, and now I've done kol, like I've fulfilled my chiyuv, not just of the produce which I've sent to you, but also that I've been makdish Levi to be master as the angel demanded of me, and so then he gets bracha as well.
Is there a thing about chaf and kuf being interchangeable? Is it one of those letters? Because you have also kol Yaakov, which is a good shtick.
Okay, I don't know. Meaning what? What would you want to say?
I'm just saying, he also
whatever you
want.
I will acknowledge there's a lot of midrashic license being taken here.
No, because when I came late and you said kol, I wasn't sure if you were saying kol as in kol, kuf avlam.
No. All the kols that we're referencing are kaflam.
You also have, he says, a kol
Yaakov. That's true.
Kind of a good.
I won't say no.
You could connect the machloket if it's bat
Should I stop?
lo hayta lo bat or shayta lo bat, because you see the Targum Yonatan, and the Targum Yonatan says, what's the first one? Yeah, he says, Esau Shneim Esau Banim bat achat, and the second person needs to find Binyamin in the stomach. The question is whether the bat's part of the kol or not.
Very good. Does Dina count as part of the bracha of kol, or is she? I like it. Very good. Or do we
Stretching it even more.
Good.
So cool.
I feel like I'm forgetting another.
Can I do it?
There's one more thing. That we said Yitzchak. After this, you can do it. We said Yitzchak. Why didn't he have to give maaser? We don't find any example of him giving maaser from his children. So he said one reason is Yitzchak himself was hekdesh, right? And hekdesh doesn't have to give maaser. So when I looked at that as well in the halacha, so there's a halacha that hekdesh patur mimaser pachot mishlish. That if you have produce that's hekdesh, as long as it hasn't grown more than a third of its gidul, then you don't have to bring it as maaser. But actually, once it's more than a shlish, so then I think it is chayav in maaser. I'm not particularly holding in the halachot, but that's, I think, what I saw.
And so if Yitzchak had 3 kids, then it's a third.
No, when Yitzchak died at 180, and how old was he when he had Yaakov and Esav? He was 60. So that's exactly a third of his life. So it wasn't more than a shlish yet. And he was younger than that when he was brought as a korban himself. So when he was hekdesh,
I
it was
don't
pachom mishlish
understand.
of his life. I don't either, to be honest.
Oh, you don't. Can I stop?
Okay.
Can we
so
keep?
yes,
no,
go
no,
ahead, go ahead.
me.
Go ahead.
Whoa. 3, 2, 8. Hey, no touching.